God only knows what you've been through. God only knows what they say about you. God only knows how it's killing you. But there's a kind of love that God only knows. God only knows what you've been through. God only knows what they say about you. But God only knows the real you. There's a kind of love that God only knows.
Welcome to the sixth episode of Your Journey Is Not Over. My name is Tanya Pearson Randolph. The expressions and opinions expressed on my podcast are of my own. I own all the rights to my personal journey and to Your Journey Is Not Over. Neither are to be copied, edited, or used in any way without my consent. Before I get started today, I do want to share that this has been emotional for me to go back in time and dig deep for these memories. I also understand by sharing these memories, my hope is that someone can relate and learn to triumph and rise above childhood trauma. Never let anything stop you or define who you are or who you will become. With faith in God and the belief that you are never alone, you yourself can become and do and accomplish anything you want to. Never let anyone put you in a box because of what you endured or where you came from. You, along with God, can move mountains. No matter what, please always believe in yourself, even when it feels like no one else does. Become your own cheerleader. Root yourself on. And disappoint all those people that said it couldn't be done. Because guess what? Anything is possible with God. And yes, it can be done. Because of the trauma of the molestation, the beatings, and being taken away from my grandma, I'm sure I suffered separation anxiety. So, because of all that, I was completely silent at school and at home. So withdrawn, so timid, just didn't talk unless I was getting hollered at and I had to talk. Again, I think the trauma affected me in so many ways. The perception of me by people that think they know me, I seem so calm and cool and I have everything under control. But I do get overwhelmed and I do get nervous. I was brought up to never let anyone see you sweat. And truly, all of my life, since a very early age, I've had no choice but to have it all figured out. The same destructive cycle continued for a couple more years, and finally, my mother, my brother, and I, moved out of her husband's house and into a one-bedroom apartment. Anything was great to get out of that nightmare. Magically, I never peed the bed again, but I did start throwing up in my sleep. Of course, it was on my brother to look after me. I remember many times my brother waking me up. He was always so worried about me choking in my sleep, but he would wake me up and bathe me and wash my hair. Of course, he had the full responsibility of me at such a young age, 14 years old. It was nice to be out of the nightmare, but things again changed for us. It was during this time that we were left to fend for ourselves. We didn't see our mother much. She did work and was single, and her nights out were nightly, almost like she was always escaping her responsibilities. Again, when I think about this time and what it must have been like for my brother, I feel guilty. I hate that he had to raise me and wasn't able to be a normal teenager. During this time, let's just say groceries weren't a priority to my mother, so that fell to my brother to make sure we had food. I remember shoveling snow with him many, many times and walking to the grocery store to buy us food. A lot of eggs, soup, and pork fritters. My brother became a good cook. He was always so thoughtful. If we would have a little extra money after the grocery store, we would walk to the retail store so I could get a new Barbie outfit. 50 cents at the time, I think. Maybe that's why the smallest of things still means so much to me. I still have the Barbie set he bought me during this time. It has a Barbie and a Barbie bed. I still have every single piece of that set. I didn't have many toys or things that were mine, so I treasured and took care of what I did. Again, still to this day, I have that complete set. And I'm also very sentimental. It was also during this time my brother got his first job washing dishes at a restaurant by our apartment. I would go with him and I would sit and watch him wash dishes. During this time, he took me to my very first movie ever. Let's just say he left with bruises on his arm because I was so scared. The movie was Halloween, the original one. I remember being scared, and let's just say I was so glad that we lived in a real small apartment. It was also during this time that I remember one time we had some extra money and we went to the steakhouse. Mind you, we didn't have money for a steak dinner. So we got a Coke and a piece of cherry pie, my favorite, to split between the two of us. Of course, I do remember the excitement of going into a restaurant and eating. I truly think it was the very first time I'd ever been in a restaurant. Next thing I remember, our mother was there. Must have been on her lunch break. She wasn't happy, in fact, angry at us. Now I look back at that and I think, how dare her, as our mother, be at a steakhouse for lunch and she had two kids at home with no food. Even though she ruined the moment for us, I still think back to that as one of my favorite memories with my brother. I do remember that she was angry when she did come home that day. This is when hiding me before she got up to our apartment became a constant thing, and my brother would tell me, no matter what she says, sis, do not come out. It was his way of protecting me from getting a beating by her. She would unleash a lot of anger on me when she whipped me, and I was so small, and at the time he didn't want her to hit on me, so he would take the beating for both of us. I do remember her hollering at me to come out, and my brother would be telling me, no, don't come out. I remember being so confused on who do I listen to. And if she was hitting him too much or too hard, I would come out of hiding then to detour her away from him. And yes, take a beating. And then he would be mad at me for not listening to him. It was always so confusing, and it made me a nervous wreck. It was also at this time that her trying to commit suicide started. I remember getting off of the school bus one day, and an ambulance was at our apartment, and they were bringing my mother out on a stretcher. Of course, I'm scared, and my brother was frantic. He quickly placed me with a family member and followed the ambulance on his bicycle to the hospital, only to be told by another family member once he got to the hospital that it was all of our fault. This is how my family thinks. Mind blowing. How could it be our fault? We hardly ever seen her. We took care of ourselves, or should I say, my brother took care of us completely. My brother held on to that for years, almost like he felt like he had failed at just 14 years old. I do remember that I went to stay with my mother's really good friend, and I remember celebrating my 8th birthday there because my mother was still in the hospital. After that, we moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in the county. Again, another school, third school that year. Being the new girl was so hard, especially since I was pretty much mute. Still didn't talk, just so quiet. I have to say, during this part of my journey, that I was so blessed. No matter what school I went to, I had the best of friends. And they just took me in and protected me and included me in everything. It was during this time that I remember my mother's ex husband showing up drunk and telling me he wasn't my real dad. Honestly, I think I already knew that. Somehow, and I don't remember it really bothering me. Also, during this time is when I finally got my own space. Once we had lived in a 1-bedroom prior to this, my brother and I had slept on the floor in the living room. Now, at this apartment, I still slept on the floor, but in the utility room. We didn't have a washer and dryer, so the utility room became my room. A funny story I have during this time is I remember my brother and I fighting. Yes, we were normal brother and sister, and somehow we broke the little window in the front door. Of course, that stopped the fight real quick and we became allies. So the story was the newspaper boy did it. Only problem is my brother clearly did not think things through because we didn't get the newspaper. Of course, we were in trouble, so my brother made me stand on his bed in the corner so our mother couldn't get to me. Of course, she would always threaten me to come down, but he would block me. Always so protective. Hated to see me cry, let alone someone hurt me. Wasn't long before our apartment got broke into and we moved again. Only this time my brother was sent to live with family. So that would be the last time that he and I would ever live together. This concludes my podcast for today. Please join me Thursday, and always remember, your journey is not over. God bless.
God only knows what you've been through. God only knows what they say about you. God only knows how it's killing you. But But there's a kind of love that God only knows. God only knows what you've been through. God only knows what they say about you. But God only knows the real you. There's a kind of love